or should I give you a war you won't believe?
Sweetheart, we're married.
Consider that a divorce. Cocainum.
Did you kill Mr. Boz, Miss Trammell?
I'd have to be pretty stupid to write a book about killing and then kill somebody the way I described it in my book. I'd be announcing myself as the killer.
I got one just like it made out of noses.
Now they're in this white and yellow Buick.
Remember, shithead! Keep your arms and legs in the vehicle! At all! See you at the party, Richter! Come with me if you want to live.
The 80s was filled with independent film studios making classics that were creative, wonderful, fun. Classics that we all cherish and love until this day. I always want to say the 80s was almost the best era for entertainment. I give a shout out to the 90s and 70s. But as far as spectacle, the 80s was something else. Independent film studios produced some of these spectacles. There was Orion Cannon, Hollywood Pictures, and there was Carcolo Pictures. Well, humble beginnings started in 1976, rising to prominence in the 80s, and it took a terrible fall during the 90s, but tried to rise again. How did Carcolo Pictures come to power? How did it lose that power? Well, you're about to find out next on the History of Franchises, Studio Style.
They drew first blood, not me.
Cocainum. Hasta la vista, baby.
To understand Carcolo Pictures, you will have to start with the founding fathers, Mario Kassir and Andrew G. Vashon. Born in Beirut, Lebanon, Mario Kassir was no stranger to the film industry, purchasing Italian and French films for distribution in the Far East in his early teens. For Andrew G. Vashon, the Hungarian-born producer, moved to California for UCLA, where he set up his own photo studio, but lost it when he broke his leg in a skiing accident. After his recovery, he became a hairdresser to produce high-quality wigs before moving to Hong Kong, where Vashon established his own wig company, which he sold in 1973. Vashon would launch his own entertainment industry with the purchase of motion pictures theaters in the Far East. Vashon founded Pan Asia Films Limited in Hong Kong that would become a highly profitable venture for him. In 1976, Vashon sold that company to Raymond Chow's Golden Harvest Company, a film studio out in China. But before the sale, Vashon would meet a young Mario Kassir at the 1975 Cannes Film Festival. A year later, the two would form Carcolo Pictures, a name that came from a long defunct company in Panama, according to Kassir himself. The duo's first film venture was The Sicilian Cross, a 1976 Italian film that starred James Bond actor Roger Moore. They brought the rights to the film for $130,000 and sold it in Asia for almost $200,000. That was big money back then. By the early 1980s, Vashon and Kassir bought a small office on Melrose Avenue and placed it as Carcol's home office, already got main studio office. Carcolo was on the move. Their first big success was First Blood in 1982. Their production company, Anabasis Investments, who financed the project and bought the rights to the whole franchise.
Men against your boy is a no-win situation for us.
You send that money, don't forget one thing. A good supply of body bags. Sylvester Stallone. This time, he's fighting for his life. First Blood.
The film star Sylvester Stallone will establish a relationship with the duo for much of the 80s and into the 90s. With Stallone's rise in stardom, First Blood made over $120 million worldwide, placing the studio among the major players in Hollywood. Cassier and Vasher will repeat the same success with First Blood sequel in 1985.
And guerrilla warfare. Sylvester Stallone is back.
Now, with the two successful films and plus some others, the action film duo decided to sign Stallone to a 10-picture deal with the studio soon after they would do the same with the Arnold, signing himself to a huge deal. From 1985 to 1987, Carcolo Pictures released 3 films: Angel Heart, a neo-noir psychological film horror, and an adaptation of the 1978 novel Fallen Angel. The film starred Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro. The film will gross up to $17.2 million domestically against an $18 million budget, and it was successful, but did have sort of some controversy dealing with some of the stars. Then in 1987, a couple of weeks after Angel's Heart release, Extreme Prejudice was released, and then in October 1987, John Carpenter's supernatural horror film, Prince of Darkness, starring Donald Pleasence. The film was a creepy one, but it would be a cult-like Faultman film. The film was part of a second installment of what Carpenter calls the Apocalypse Trilogy, which began with The Thing in 1982. Yes, that thing, and ended in The Mouth of Madness in 1994. All the moving and shaking, Carolco continued to release films with a partnership with TriStar Pictures. Among these films were Rambo 3 in 1988, the action buddy film Red Heat starring The Arnold and Jim Belushi. They Live in 1989. They Live was actually distribution by Universal Pictures.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
The fan favorite Lockup starring the Stallone as well. The TriStar deal will only last until 1994, when TriStar Pictures will become a subsidy under Sony Entertainment Company. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Cassier and Vasher enlisted a home video distribution by purchasing the Phelan video distributor International Video Entertainment. IVE would merge with another distributor in Lieberman, becoming Live Entertainment in 1988. The duo continued to keep buying add-ons. In 1987, Carcolo acquired the TV syndicator Obis Communications for $15 million to start up TV production, and then proceeded to purchase Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis' former film studio, De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, production facility in North Carolina. De Laurentiis didn't have the heart in the deal, but completed it anyway in order to control the investments that he had. With that purchase, Carolco established a home video subsidy called Carolco Home Video, of course. But with the expansion of the studio, Carolco was heading into murky waters from within. At the turn of the decade, Carolco Pictures started out with a bang, rolling out films that would become ultimate classics. The first of these films being Paul Van Hooven's Total Recall. The science fiction action flick was loosely based on the 1966 Philip K. Dick short story We Can Remember If You Wholesale. The film's idea was pushed around in Hollywood for some time. Originally, it was handed to Dino De Laurentiis and his production company, with David Cronenberg directing. But all that fell out of order when De Laurentiis' production company and himself fell apart. The Arnold was interested for the role for the longest time and was now attached to starring the film. He got his wish. Filming took place in Mexico City from spring of 1989 to early fall. On June 1st, 1990, Total Recall, starring The Arnold, Sharon Stone, and Michael Ironside, aka Darkseid, premiered. Total Recall is one of my favorite and very quotable movies for some reason.
See you at the party, Richter. You think this is the real Quaid? It is. You broke my cover! What the fuck did I do wrong? Tell me!
The film grossed up to $261.3 million at the box office in total, with an expensive budget of $60 million for it at the time. With the success of Total Recall, behind the scenes, things were starting to take a turn. At the end of 1989, Castor and Vashna had disagreements on the directions of the company and financial decisions. Vashna decided to leave and sell all his shares of the studio before going on his own way. The reasons why Vashna chose to go down this route, mainly because he did not actually want to see Carcolo Pictures become bigger than itself. He wanted to still be independent. But on the other hand, Mario Kastner and the new president of Carolco Films wanted it to be bigger than ever. And there was a lot of toxicity going around. So, being the mastermind of starting the film studios as he was, he started up Synergy Productions that will handle financial development, production, and distribution of major motion pictures. As a part of the business plan, Vashna would form an alliance with the Walt Disney Company for distribution of Synergy films in North America and Latin America. In the same year, the businessman that he was, Vashna founded Intercom, a market leader and distributor for many Hollywood studios such as 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, Disney, and MGM. With Vashna selling 106 million of his shares to Kastner, it would make Kastner shares of Carolco boost up to 62%. Back to Mario Kastner, Kastner would enlist more help from Peter Hoffman, the president of Carolco. Both men wanted to take the studio to major success, and indeed, that's what they did, and they got it. Kastner and Carolco had his eyes on the next project. The next project being the sequel to the 1984 The Terminator, the classic. In order to get that, he had to acquire the rights from Hindle Ford Corporation, something that the Arnold pressed Kastner about. Eventually, after a few legal disputes, Kastner would pay $5 million for the rights for the franchise in 1990. Kastner will hire James Cameron to direct the sequel. The old cast returned. Arnold, or the Arnold as we know around the franchise history TV, will be paid $15 million for his role and receive a jet from Kastner, which raised a couple of eyebrows, even raising my eyebrows right now. $15 million for a jet. That's crazy. For the times. But if you want to hear more about the Terminator franchise, go to History of Franchises Season 1. You got all your Terminator needs there. But Terminator 2 Judgment Day was released on July 3rd, 1991, becoming the highest grossing film in 1991 and will be one of Carolco's most successful films. With a budget from anywhere from $94 million to $102 million, the film made its budget by grossing up to $520.9 million altogether. The film won awards: Best Makeup, Best Sound, Best Sound Editing, Best Visual Effects, nominated for the Best Film Editing and Best Cinematography. The movie will become an ultimate classic that everybody would love, and probably, according to some fans, the last good Terminator film. This film is still in the lexicon and in the hearts and minds of many people around the world, as many people will continue to say hasta la vista and I'm back and sorts of other sayings, but we're not going to go there right now. Let's get back to the story. Later in the year, Carolco will join a venture with New Line Cinema to start 7 Art Cinema, a distribution company that would release Carolco's low-budget films and independents. One of them was King of New York, starring Christopher Walken and Lawrence Fishburne. After the success of Terminator 2, Carolco tried to venture into the superhero business by attempting to secure the rights to everybody's favorite web slinger, Spider-Man. With the help of James Cameron, who would try to direct said film, the attempt failed big time.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
The rights will fall into the lap of Columbia Pictures and Sony, and we'll speak more about the Spider-Man rights war in a different video. In 1992, Carolco would release another successful hit, Basic Instinct, starring Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, directed by RoboCop director and Total Recall's director Paul Van Hooven. It grossed up to $352 million, becoming the fourth highest grossing film in 1992, behind Aladdin, The Animated, The Bodyguard, and Home Alone 2. It was some controversy with this film, and I won't discuss it here because you know why, if anybody knows about the Basic Instinct. Even with the success of Terminator 2, Total Recall, and Basic Instinct, Carolco was in trouble. The low-budget art house films were not making any money. The studio was overspending like crazy, especially on superstars like Arnold and Stallone. The loss of partnerships did not help as well. Carolco was heading straight for bankruptcy. Now, Carcolo Pictures' bankruptcy was a slow burn that began in 1992. In the same year, Carolco went under a corporate restructuring led by a partnership of RCS Media Group, an Italian group, La Studio Canal France, Pioneer, and MGM. Each of the partners put $60 million in Carolco stock and $50 million more for co-financing deals. MGM would agree to distribute Carolco's product in the States after the TriStar deal was expired in 1994. In the next year, Carolco was forced to sell its shares in Live Entertainment to Pioneer, later renaming it to Artisan Entertainment, which was bought by Lionsgate Entertainment in 2003, and now it's called Lionsgate Home Entertainment. Carolco tried to make a last-ditch effort to make blockbuster movies with Stallone-led action film Cliffhanger. Cutbacks at the studio was forced in order to fund the film. The studio will have to sell full distribution rights in North America, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, and Mexico to TriStar in exchange for half of the film's budget. The film, starring Sylvester Stallone, was a concept by a climber who became embroiled in a heist of the U.S. Treasury plane flying in the Rocky Mountains. The film was alright to me. The film was released on May 20th, 1993, earning $255 million worldwide. Even with Cliffhanger's success, Carolco made very little money due to Carolco becoming basically a minority owner in the film, not a majority. Carolco had to shelve various films because of the budget. Example of that would be Crusade, a film that would star the Arnold, but the budget exceeded $100 million. Carolco tried for one more big budget film called Cutthroat Island, starring Michael Douglas. Oh wait, Michael Douglas dropped out. Let's bring in Matthew Modine, known for such films as Full Metal Jacket and Pacific Heights. The film also starred Gina Davis, who was coming off a series of flops. In order to produce this film, the film's budget was over $90 million, so more rights had to be sold off. More rights to movies such as Stargate and Showgirls. Eventually, Carcolo Pictures ran out of funds. Pioneer had to step in and invest $8 million. Cutthroat Island was released around Christmas 1995 to $2 million. Scratch that, $10 million at the box office. Carolco was in the red. In the same year, Carolco made news when it was unable to make interest payments on its $55 million debt. In November of that year, Carolco filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. At first, Carolco agreed to sell its assets to 20th Century Fox for $50 million, but Le Studio Canal made $58 million bid for Carolco's assets, forcing Fox out of the deal. And I'm glad that didn't happen, because you know what has happened to Fox now. The studio canal brought all Carolco's film library. Mario Cassier, he was out. But let's switch lanes a little bit for a minute. Let's just switch lanes. So during the collapse of Carcolo Pictures, Cassier, in his partnership with president of Carcolo Pictures, Peter Hoffman, it grew ugly. Hoffman thought Cassier's generosity would destroy the company, while Cassier thought Hoffman was trying to dispose of him. Hoffman, by 1992, had enough. So he left the studio, but he did leave for $1.8 million in a settlement. But Peter Hoffman, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong at all. Going back to Cassier, he bought a lot. He bought a lot of gifts for the owner. The jet, once again, was worth $17 million, on top of what Arnold was getting for T2. Cassier would give Michael Douglas $15 million to star in Basic Instinct, while Stallone was receiving the same treatment. Cassier thought money grew on trees. It got to the point, eventually LA judge froze $2.2 million of Cassier's shares and limited his access to the company's accounts. It's crazy. Even with losing $47 million on Cutthroat Island, Cassier did receive a fee of $1 million. But Carolco done, Cassier, he was out, but he wouldn't struggle finding a new gig. He found an employment with Paramount Studios and started Mario Cassier's Productions in 1997. Paramount Studios, it was very fond of him, and Cassier was very fond of Paramount Studios. As for Andrew Vajna, things didn't go as planned at Synergy. Synergy collapsed due to poor box office returns. Disney had to close down productions across the board, and currently, well, at the time, Synergy had the rights to Die Hard with a Vengeance, but sold the rights to 20th Century Fox. The irony, if you can think about it. Synergy and Disney's last film will be a film called Burn, Hollywood Burn in 1998. Synergy will fold in the same year. In that same year, Cassier and Vajna would meet, and with that meeting, the idea of C2 Pictures began. Basically, it was Carolco 2. The company's main plan? Drum roll, please. Resurrect the Terminator franchise, which was dormant and should have stayed dormant at this time. By 2002, C2 will release its first film, I Spy, starring Eddie Murphy and Owen Wilson. The film only made $60 million, a bomb, and it was the third bomb of Eddie Murphy in 2002, following other two movies that I should not name right now. But C2's biggest film?
She'll be back.
Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines will be released on July 2nd, 2003, grossing up to $33.3 million with the distribution by Warner Brothers. It will reunite the duo with the Arnold once again. 3 years later, Basic Instinct 2 was released, and oh, that was a bonfire of a film. There was no Michael Douglas, and it's just way too far from the original to the sequel. 2006? Come on now. Those never do well. Sometimes they don't. C2's last film will be Children of Glory in 2006. Nobody knows about that movie. On the television side, C2, along with Warner Brothers Television and Fox, will produce the first season of Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles in 2008, which premiered on Fox. In the same year, the company fell into dormancy and dissolved. Cassier and Vajna never got to fulfill that plan of carrying out a new Terminator especially to new heights. The rights to the Terminator franchise would go to the Halcyon Company for the future in 2007. The Halcyon, along with Warner Brothers, who paid $60 million to acquire the U.S. distribution rights, along with Sony paying another $100 million for the rights internationally. Cassier will receive $30 million for the sale of the rights of the Terminator. Cassier and Vajna, they will part ways again. Cassier would try to revive Carcolo Pictures. Actually, it wasn't even him this time. There was another company called Bricktop Productions that used the Carolco name and put Cassier as chairman of the board of directors in 2015. Carcolo Pictures Incorporated, which it was called. The goal? Restoring Hollywood. By 2017, the name would change to Recall Studios as the Studio Canal and Substudio Canal Group would have full control of the Carolco name in his library. As for Andrew Vajna, he will return to Hungary and promote the film industry there, boosting it and restoring it of much of Hungary's media for much of the late 2010s. But sadly, Andrew G. Vajna would pass away at his home in Budapest in January 2019. Carolco may be gone, well, the original studios, but many of the legacy of the studio lives on in its films for years to come.
Hasta la vista, baby.